She's massive in more ways than one. Hello, and welcome to Beauty and the Beast. This is a Sukuna dating sim in which you were childhood friends that were cruelly torn apart. However, many years later, you finally reunite, yet he claims that the boy you once knew no longer exists. Let's get started. I'm so excited. I can't wait to see both of his things. Everything would have been different if you hadn't found the woman that day. Your sandals slap softly against the temple stone path as you run. Your breath quick and light. You're searching for the perfect hiding place, somewhere the others won't think to look. The late afternoon air hangs heavy, humming with the songs of cicadas and the faint murmur of prayers echoing from the temple halls. You round the corner and spot one of the smaller entrances, its stone stairs hidden beneath overgrown weeds. No one will find you there, but just as you step towards it, you freeze. Something is there. Is it one of Sukuna's wieners? At the edge of the stairs, a shape slumps against the stone, hunched and still. The shadows stretch long and the dimming light painting jagged edges around it. Your chest tightens. The monsters. The memory of the attack rushes back in an instant. The twisted forms, their glowing eyes. The way their claws tore through the temple walls like paper. Your stomach churns as you stand frozen, staring at the figure. It isn't moving, but it is there. Undeniable. You clench your fists, forcing yourself to remember the High Priestess's words. Deep breaths. Stay calm. The creatures can smell fear. Walk closer. You squint at the figure as you creep forward, your pulse pounding in your ears. Something else is going to be pounding later, if you know what I mean. But as the light shifts and the shadow falls away, you see it. It isn't a monster. It's a woman. Her figure leans heavily on the tall, tattered bamboo basket, her bony frame trembling as she fights to stay upright. Sweat drips from her brow, glistening against her ashen skin. Tangled hair clings to her face, which is pale and hollow like a mask stretched too tight. Miss, are you alright? Your voice wavers as you speak, and you take a cautious step closer. She doesn't respond. Instead, her shoulders shudder with a rasping breath. The smell hits you then. Coppery, sharp and sour. Blood and sickness. The odor clings to her like the sick chambers of the temple, the place your family stayed. The memories of pale faces and dying breaths rush back and your stomach twists. You step closer despite the knot forming in your chest. Suddenly your hand shoots out and grabs your leg. You yelp and try and pull away, but her strength surprises you. Her fingers clamp tightly. They grip hard and bony like the gnarled branches of a tree. Hey, my leg! You raise your arm instinctively, ready to defend yourself. The leaves above rustle as the trees sway. And then you see her eyes and stop mid-motion. They aren't filled with malice. Instead, they are wide, pleading and glimmering with desperation. Please. Her voice scrapes against her throat, the sound raw and weak. Take my son with you. Her free hand pushes the basket towards you, her entire body shaking with the effort. The basket wobbles slightly, almost tipping over as it lands at your feet. You glance at it, then back at her. Protect him. The words send a chill through you, rooting you in place. You crouch next to the basket, your movements slow and hesitant. The faint sound of breathing meets your ears, soft and fragile and alive. Her grip on your leg tightens briefly, her fingers trembling against your skin. Promise me, you're gonna protect him. You look at her again, the way her body sags under its own weight. I promise. The words spill out before you realize it's shaky and unsure. A strange warmth spreads from her palm, pressed against your leg, snaking upwards until it blooms in your chest and rushes to your head. The tension in her face eases. Slowly her hand falls away from your leg, her arm dropping limply to her side. Thank you. Her shoulders slump, and her head bows as if the weight of her own body is too much to bear. She stays like that for a moment, breathing deeply, and then with great effort, she pushes herself upright. She staggers towards the trees, leaning heavily on the trunks for support. Each step seems to drain her further. At the edge of the clearing, she stops. She turns, casting one last glance towards the basket, then with a shaky breath, vanishes into the woods. You look back down at the basket, your heart hammering, and slowly you open it. Two pairs of glowing red eyes stare back at you. They blink, framed by a pale, delicate face. The boy inside is small, his fragile body swaddled in worn cloth, but his face, his right side, looks like the bark of an ancient tree, twisted and uneven, as if shaped by a storm. It's strange, but in a way, it's beautiful. The boy doesn't make a sound, but you can feel it. A warmth, fragile and faint, reaching out from him to you. You feel your lips twitch, a smile. You have a new friend. The dream clings to you, swirling around your thoughts like a stubborn mist long after you wake. The promise you made to that woman still burns in your chest, a restless gale that refuses to settle. It's worse now, sharper and heavier, as if she knows you broke your word. As if in your dreams, she summons the winds of her despair to remind you of the vow you shattered. At that time, you didn't know it was a binding vow. Breaking it was like fracturing a piece of fate itself. But now the vow is broken, and disaster waits for you like a storm gathering on the horizon. It may not strike today or tomorrow, but it's there. Inevitable. You can feel it hanging over you, whispering through every breath of wind. You shake your hand, pushing the thought away. Disaster will come whether you want it or not, so there's no point in worrying about it. You keep walking through the ruins of the city. The air here feels wrong, too still, heavy with the weight of destruction. You've always preferred exercising curses in the capital, for practicality's sake, but the payment this time was too tempting to refuse. Now, standing amidst the remnants of what was once a village, the truth behind the gossip reaches you with chilling clarity. Whispers of entire villages wiped out with no survivors left to tell the tale. It just isn't destruction. It's devastation. Whatever is behind this didn't simply attack, it obliterated. You inhale deeply, the wind shifting around you, trying to sense something, anything, that might lead you closer to the source. You need more clues. Where should I check? Check the bodies. The corpses lie scattered, their wounds too clean, too sharp, like they were sliced by a blade honed to perfection. The cursed energy lingering here is thick, hanging in the air like a storm waiting to break. A normal person might believe that this is the work of nature, a storm's fury or tornado's wrath, but you're a sorcerer, you know better. The devastation carries intent, a purpose that no natural disaster possesses. This wasn't a curse either. Someone did this. You close your eyes, letting the air shift around you, searching for the trail of destruction. The faint trace of cursed energy tugs at you like a faint breeze, pulling you south. If the other villages are anything to go by, whoever did this isn't going to stop. You push off the ground and leap into the air, wind catching you like an old friend lifting you higher. From above, the scale of destruction comes into view, like a jagged scar stretching south, cutting through the landscape. Your eyes narrow. You'll intercept them. You have to. Your payment depends on it. The wind shifts again, warm and gentle this time, like a memory brushing against your skin. It fills your mind, carrying you backward to a moment you can't ignore. You glare at the little paper figure in your hand, the one you just dug out of the earth. Dirt clings to its edges, but it's impossible to miss the shape. Its four arms give it away instantly. It's obvious who it's supposed to be. The name, Ryomen Sukuna, is scrawled across its surface, the ink smudged but still visible beneath streaks of dirt. Your jaw tightens. Don't worry, friend. As long as I'm here, I'll purify all their curses. Your voice is firm, but your hands are gentle as you hold the fragile paper figure. Besides you, your friend stands silently, his figure tall and unmoving near the riverbank. He never speaks. You don't know if he can't, or if he simply won't. Either way, his silence has never bothered you. It does, however, bother others. Even now you can hear their cruel words in your mind, the way adults and children alike hurl curses at him, just for how he looks. His four crimson eyes, his twisted features, they see a monster in him, but you don't. He doesn't react to them. He never does. He doesn't flinch when they shout, doesn't speak when they whisper behind his back. His stillness always felt heavier than words, like a quiet wind that carries the weight of storms. You whisper, a prayer under your breath, and toss the paper figure into the river. It hits the surface with a soft plop and begins drifting downwards, spinning lazily in the current. You lost track of how many of these paper effigies you purified since your friend came into your life. All you know is that you're doing what his mother asked, protecting him as best as you can, even if it means fighting. The High Priestess has scolded you more times than you can count for using violence to defend him, but you don't care. You'd fight them all over again if you had to. When your curse technique develops, we'll show them. The monks say curse techniques awaken between 5 and 6 years old. Your friend is already taller than you, just slightly, so it won't be long now. You glance at him, expecting some sort of reaction, but he's still standing at the paper figure as it drifts further and further away. His four crimson eyes follow its form with an intensity you come to recognize. Quiet, thoughtful, maybe even sad. Hey, don't believe them, friend. You're not the demon Ryomen Sukuna. The words are soft but firm. You tilt your head, searching for his gaze, but he doesn't look at you. I don't know what your real name is, but I bet it's beautiful. At that, he finally turns to you, his expression skeptical. That look, a mix of doubt and quiet and amusement. It's one you've seen before. And you don't like it. He doesn't believe you. Compliment his eyes or compliment his arms? Let's go with his eyes. I bet it's beautiful, just like your eyes. All of them, I mean. His eyes widen in surprise, and for a moment he looks almost startled. Then quickly he glances away and starts walking towards the temple. But you catch it, the faint curl of his lips as he moves. It's the first time you've ever seen him smile. Yay! You'll have to compliment him more. Smoke fills the air, thick and suffocating, rising in spirals from the burning village below. The acrid scent of charred wood and iron stings your nose, and your stomach knots. You've arrived just in time, or so you hope. As you descend, the wind carries you, the sounds of destruction growing louder. Cries for help pierce the chaos, mingling with the groaning collapse of wooden beams and the distant sharp crackle of flames. Your pulse quickens as you follow the noise. A group of villagers cower below a collapsing building. Without hesitation, you summon the wind, a sharp gust slicing the debris into harmless fragments. The villagers stare at you in disbelief, then bow deeply, murmuring their thanks over and over. One woman steps forward, grabbing your hand with trembling fingers. Her palms are sticky with blood, and her wide, tear-filled eyes search yours desperately. Thank you so much. No need to thank me. Did you see who's causing this? The disgraced one, Ryomen Sukuna. Your heart skips a beat, the name ringing in your ears like a death knell. Ryomen Sukuna. Your chest tightens as the name echoes in your mind. It can't be the demon, but if it isn't, don't go there. He'll kill you, like he did with all the others. Or worse, eat you. The woman's trembling hand grips yours for a moment longer, as if trying to share what little strength she has left. Then with a lingering glance, she releases you and hurries after the others. You barely register her leaving. The name Ryomen Sukuna repeats in your mind over and over like a relentless drumbeat. You turn and walk straight into the village's heart. The cursed energy hits you first. It's not just heavy, it's oppressive, suffocating. It drags against your chest, slowing your steps and rattling something deep inside you. I mean, Sukuna's gonna rattle something else that's deep inside me later. Shut up, Beauty, this is serious. People have died. Then you see him. At the center of the destruction, standing tall like a god of death, is a towering figure. He's shirtless. His pale skin marred with criminal tattoos that seem to writhe with life. 4 arms, all corded with muscle, move and invisible slashes cut through the village. The devastation is immediate. Homes are split in 2, their clean edges surreal against the chaos. Screams are severed mid-breath, leaving behind chilling silences. Your breath hitches. A sharp intake that feels like a dagger to your chest. Time seems to fracture. You're staring at the boy you once knew, and yet he's nothing like him. The past rushes back unbidden. You search for your friend everywhere. He wasn't in the temple. The high priestess told you a noble had taken him away to be his servant. You screamed his name, forcing the wind to carry your voice through the trees, through the mountains, but no answer ever came. Days blurred into weeks into years, and you thought you'd never see him again. Until now, it's him. Unmistakable. But the boy you knew is gone, replaced by a force of destruction, devastating everything in his path. He's the one you've been sent to exercise. Your legs move on their own, one step and then another, drawn forward despite the storm of emotions churning in you. Why is there angst in my smut? Relief, horror, anger, longing, and something sharper and magnetic that makes your pulse race. Before you can stop yourself, the word escapes your lips, trembling and fragile. Friend! He stops. Slowly he turns, his movements almost deliberate. oh dear lord. God, the 4 arms always gets me every single time. Ugh. You're not even my favorite in Jujutsu Kaisen. My favorite is Choso and Hirugama. Oh my god, if we ever got a Hirugama dating sim, I think I might just die. His 4 red eyes lock onto yours, rooting you to the spot. They're the same as you remember, and now there's a coldness in them, sharp and cruel. For a moment, there's no recognition in his gaze. Then a slow smirk spreads across his face, sharp and mocking. Friend, who do you think you're talking to? Worm? His voice is low, laced with mockery, but there's a hint of something else beneath the surface. Don't you remember me? It's me from the temple. It's been so long. The smirk widens. His gaze roves over you, deliberate and heavy, and you feel the weight of his scrutiny like a physical touch. Oh god, the grin! Stop it! Stop that! I never had any friends. The words hit you harder than the destruction around you, but you don't back down. What happened to you? Why are you doing this? Because I enjoy it. That boy, my friend, he wouldn't do this. His laughter is sharp, cutting through the air like one of his invisible slashes. Then you never knew me. His arms move with fluid precision, and more slashes tear through the village. People fall mid-sprint, their bodies collapsing in pieces. You flinch, the sound of their cries hitting you like a blow. No! The words burst from you. Raw and desperate, your friend wouldn't do this. Another slash. Stop! He wouldn't. Another slash. He raises his arms again. Your voice catches in your throat, strangled beneath the weight of despair. With every ounce of strength, you force it out, shouting the name, the identity he chose for himself. Ryomen Sukuna! Sukuna stops. Slowly he turns, a smirk creeping across his face. So you do know how to address someone by their name. In a blur, he closes the distance between you. His clawed hand catches your wrist, the heat of his cursed energy burning against your skin. You gasp, the pain and the weight of his grip stealing your breath. You call yourself my friend. Let's see how far you go to stop me. That's what you came here to do, right? Like all the others. He yanks you forward, and you stumble, your free hand colliding with the firm scorching plane of his torso just above the mouth on his stomach. That mouth is gonna be doing things later, mark my words. His skin radiates heat beneath your palm. The tattoos seem to ripple like living art as his muscles tighten. For a moment, everything else, all destruction, the screams, the chaos fades away. All you can feel is the overwhelming heat of him, the raw power radiating from his body. You don't want to fight him. You made a promise. Something must have happened to turn him into this, but you can't fathom what. This isn't you. His claws tighten on your wrist as his crimson eyes burn into yours, his expression unreadable. You have no idea who I am. Desperation fuels you. With a sharp gesture, you summon your wind, stealing the breath from his lungs. The air around him turns still and suffocating, pressing down like an invisible weight. He falters, his chest heaving as his muscles tense against the strain. For the first time, you see his composure crack. You've gotten stronger, but you're still human. Your voice is steady, but your body screams in protest. You know you can't keep this up forever. If you can hold him here long enough, maybe, just maybe, he'll pass out and the rest of the villagers can flee. His crimson eyes narrow, burning with fury, and with a flick of his wrist, a slash cuts through the stillness, shattering your control over the air. The force sends you stumbling, your technique unraveling as he steps free from your trap. Do you think this is what a human looks like? Yes. Your voice is steady, but the conviction in it seems to strike a nerve. His expression darkens, and something flares in his eyes. Anger, perhaps, or something deeper. He moves in a blur faster than you can track, forcing you to rely on instinct alone. The wind slices through the air, crashing into debris and tearing apart what remains of the village, but none of it touches him. Sukuna flows through your attacks with infuriating ease, each motion deliberate, like he's dancing around desperation. And then he vanishes. The word stills for a heartbeat. Your breath hitches as you whip around, searching, the wind whipping around you in a defensive flurry. Too slow. A deep voice murmurs, warm against your ear. A wave of heat floods through you, both shameful and electric. You think this is no time to be horny. Or maybe it's the perfect time to be horny. You spin, but he strikes, sending you crashing to the ground. Pain radiates through your body as your vision blurs. Sukuna looms over you, his claws raised, ready to strike. You don't move. His hand hovers above your neck, and you feel the heat against your skin. This is it. This is the punishment you've been waiting for. The disaster for breaking the vow. You failed him. You promised his mother you would protect him, keep him safe from harm, and instead he became this. And now, as his hand inches closer, you feel the weight of that failure crushing you. You close your eyes. It's fitting, isn't it, that the one you failed is the one to end you, to bring your disaster. But the blow never comes. Your breath catches as silence stretches between you. Slowly you open your eyes and see his hand trembling ever so slightly. His claw curls into a fist, the cursed energy flickering out. He steps back, his expression unreadable. You're pathetic. The words are sharp. His voice carries an edge of something else. He turns away, his steps deliberate, and disappears into the ruins, leaving you behind. Your knees buckle and you collapse to the ground, the weight of his absence heavier than anything else. Aww. Sukuna's point of view. Sukuna sharpens his trident, the blade scraping against the whetstone with a deliberate grating sound. Sparks flicker and die as the metal edge glints in the dim light. The motion is unhurried, almost meditative. His focus entirely on the deadly precision of the weapon. Soft footsteps echo faintly in the room, barely audible over the rhythmic scrape. He doesn't look up. Master Sukuna, I placed her in the room as you requested. A low hum escapes him, more acknowledgement than reply. His hands never stop their work. Ryomen lingers, her tone measured and calm as ever. Do you want me to cook her later, or are you keeping her as a pet? That makes him pause. The corner of his mouth curls upward and a dry chuckle rumbles in his chest. They always sound so serious, even when asking something so absurd. I'll keep her as a pet, for now. He resumes sharpening the trident, the sound slicing through the air like an extension of his intent. Prepare dinner for her as well. Ryomen bows lightly, their voice smooth and obedient. As you wish, master. Without another word they leave, their steps fading into the corridor. The silence that follows feels heavy, pressing in around him. Sukuna sets the whetstone down and inspects the blade, his crimson eyes narrowing at the razor-sharp edge. The reflection on its surface is warped, fractured just like the thoughts twisting in his mind. He should have killed that woman. The thought gnaws at him like an itch he can't scratch. He had imagined their reunion countless times, and in every scenario it always ended with her death, clean, final. She is the last thread tying him to a past he's long since severed, a tether he's been trying to rip apart for years. The moment she saw him, when her eyes widened and her lips parted to call him friend, he should have ended it. But he didn't. She looks at him like she still sees something else. Not the monster he's become, but the boy he never truly was. The memory of her gaze unsettles him. It lingers, burning against his skin like a brand, and he can still hear her voice, soft yet defiant, calling out for someone who doesn't even exist anymore. Why does it matter? Why does she matter? Sukuna's grip tightens on the trident, the muscles in his forearm rippling beneath his tattoos. She will see it, he decides. She will acknowledge what he is. He'll tear apart every memory she clings to until nothing remains but fear and despair. He'll strip her bare until she can no longer deny the truth. Whatever this is, whatever she's clinging to, it won't last. Pain greets you the moment you wake, sharp and all-encompassing. Your whole body feels heavy, bruised, as if even your bones are protesting movement. Blinking against the dim light, you take in your surroundings. The room is unfamiliar, minimalistic, quiet and cold. In the corner, your small travel bag sits untouched. Did someone rescue you? The memory hits you like a slap. His face, his claws hovering above your neck, the weight of his cursed energy pressing down on you. Why didn't he kill you? The thought turns over in your mind, twisting uncomfortably as you drag yourself upright. You stagger to the door, reaching for the handle. Before you can open it, the door slides open, revealing a white-haired monk standing impassively in the doorway. Their faces blank, unreadable. You open your mouth to thank them for helping you, but they speak first, their tone calm and detached. Greetings. I'm Urame. Master Sukuna requests your presence in the dining room. The air leaves your lungs. Any lingering hope that you've been saved vanishes instantly. You weren't rescued. You were captured. Your heart pounds as the monk steps inside, waiting for you to follow. The question claws at your mind. Why? Why would he bring me here? The possibilities are endless, each more horrifying than the last. Does he want to torture you further? Is this just the start of something worse? The thought twists in your stomach as you follow the monk down a long quiet corridor. The faint echo of your footsteps mixes with theirs, and the stillness of the place unnerves you. A temple. You recognize it now. The faint smell of incense and the cool stone underfoot remind you of the one you once called home. The monk stops at the door and opens it, stepping aside once again. Warm air and the smell of food hit your nostrils immediately, making your stomach grumble despite yourself. Ugh, he's so pretty. You hesitate in the doorway. Sukuna is already seated at the low wooden table on the tatami floor, legs folded neatly beneath him. A thick zabuton cushion supports his massive frame, but he still seems to dominate the room. Sit. You force yourself to step inside, but remain standing near the table, your hands clenching at your sides. Why did you bring me here? He places a piece of meat in his mouth, chewing lazily, then answers without even looking at you. I basically killed you, so your life belongs to me now. You let out an incredulous huff, disbelief overtaking your fear for just a moment. What? He meets your glare with a smirk, his voice smooth and cruel. You can't leave this place, or I'll kill you. You open your mouth to protest, but he cuts you off with a raised hand. But you can leave at any time. If you say I'm a monster. The words hang in the air like a challenge. You stare at him, your mind reeling. He can't be serious, can he? Is this some kind of game to him? This is ridiculous. Then just say it and leave. Your lips press into a firm line. You don't believe he's a monster, at least not entirely. You don't know if you're more stubborn about holding on to your belief or refusing to let him win. If you're not gonna say it, then sit down and eat. You slowly lower yourself onto the cushion, glaring at the small tray of food placed in front of you as if it personally insulted you. Urame. The monk steps forward, their movements deliberate and smooth as they place more small trays around you. The smell of the food is almost overwhelming and your stomach twists with hunger. You glance at Sukuna, who is calmly continuing his meal, his gaze occasionally flickering towards you. And reluctantly you take a bite. The silence stretches as you eat, but your thoughts well. How do you talk to him? How do you ask what even happened to him? What turned him into this? Would he even answer? Your eyes drift over the table and then they stop. A large plate of meat sits just out of your reach, positioned almost deliberately. Something about it feels off, like it's meant to catch your attention. You point to the plate. Is that deer? The corners of his mouth curl into a smile. Both of them. No. You freeze, staring at the meat and then at him. The monk standing nearby also has a small amused smile on their face. Dear, don't scream so much. The voice of the old woman from the village echoes in your mind. He'll kill you. Or worse, eat you. I mean, he can eat me in another way. Your stomach churns violently as you shove the plate away as you get to your feet, disgust roiling through you. You... say it. No, I refuse. You bite your lip hard, trying to regain control, your emotions threatening to spill over. I will not. I will make you fall in love with me. Is this some kind of sick kink of yours, wanting to be called a monster by everyone? His smirk widens as he picks up another piece of meat and eats it slowly, deliberately. Your stomach lurches again, bile rising in your throat. Your gaze drops to the meat in your own bowl for a moment. Fear prickles at the edge of your mind, but you exhale in quiet relief. It doesn't look the same. You just refuse to see because you're blinded by early memories. He grabs another piece of meat from the plate, holding it almost lazily between his claws. You turn sharply, refusing to look at him any longer, and then make for the door. But before you can take a step, a deep gash carves through the floor just in front of your feet, stopping you cold. You can't leave without finishing your food. Now sit. You stand there for a long moment, trembling with rage and disgust. But the oppressive weight of his cursed energy leaves you no choice. Slowly and stiffly, you sit back down, your jaw clenched tight. You eat quickly, refusing to meet his gaze, fury bubbling under your skin with every bite. When you're finished, you shove the tray away and stand again. Sukuna leans back slightly, his expression one of infuriating amusement. Remember, you can leave at any time. The mockery in his tone sets your blood boiling. You feel Urame's gaze on your back as you leave, their faint smile adding to the humiliation. The door closes behind you, but the lingering sound of his laughter stays with you, digging under your skin. Man! You retrace the path Urame led you down, your steps echoing faintly in the quiet halls. The temple feels larger now, its dark corners and distant shadows pressing down on you with an oppressive weight. As you walk, your eyes catch on something ahead, the front gate of the temple. You stop, your gaze lingering on the tall wooden structure. Beyond it lies freedom. You could fly off, let the wind carry you far, far away from this place. Away from him. The thought tugs at you. Tempting, but your feet stay planted. With a sharp exhale, you shake your head and keep walking, the ache in your chest deepening with every step, but you won't stop until you reach the room. You kneel beside your bag and pull out your diary, its familiar weight grounding you. So much has happened today, too much to hold on to. Your thoughts churn, restless and heavy. Grabbing a bit of water, you dilute the ink, watching the black swell and lighten. You open your diary to a blank page and begin to write. At first, your words are simple. Fragments of the day, chaotic memories spilling out. The fight, his face, his words, but soon everything narrows to him. Your hand falters. The tip of your brush hovers above the page, trembling. Then the words pour out. Everything you felt but didn't dare say. The confusion, the pain, the awe of seeing him as an adult. His presence so much larger and sharper than the boy you once knew. You write his name, the name he chose for himself. Maybe you should have given him a name back then, when you were both still children. But you didn't. You wanted him to choose it for himself. And now he has. You just never imagined it would be this. You pour all of it into the ink, hoping to trap the chaos of your thoughts, to lock them in the strokes and lines where they can't follow you. But the ink fails you. At some point, you drift into sleep, the exhaustion of the day pulling you under, and the relief is fleeting. Your dreams twist, shifting into something darker, something raw, and this time they promise a different kind of ruin. You dream of tattooed skin, warm and electric against yours, of arms wrapping around you, holding you down, cradling you and pulling you apart. Heat coils through your body, unbearable and all-consuming as you shatter in waves of ecstasy and pleasure. Whoa, hey! You wake with a gasp, your skin damp with sweat, your breath unsteady. The dream lingers, searing itself into your thoughts. You don't need an interpreter to tell you what it means. It isn't just a bad omen, it's a warning. And yet despite the unease curling in your chest, you feel no urge to leave. Wait, you mean I got spicy dreams as a warning? You don't want him to win. That's all there is to it. You tell yourself that's why you're still here. Nothing more. Biting your lip, you pick up your brush and begin writing again. Maybe if you put the dreams to paper, they'll stop haunting you. Maybe you can purge the thoughts clawing at the back of your mind. These thoughts, these edges and desires disgust you. They twist something deep inside you. And yet, now they belong to the paper. Only the ink will hold them. Only the ink will know. Morning light filters through the temple halls as Sukuna strides towards her room, his steps unhurried but purposeful. Ryomen follows silently at his heel, their presence a shadow to his towering figure. He spent the night crafting ways to make her admit the truth, to force her to see him for what he is, a monster. He and Ryomen had devised some interesting ideas, each more twisted than the last, and the thought of testing them brings a sharp glint to his crimson eyes. When he reaches her room, however, it's empty. A flicker of something unpleasant surges through him, coiling in his chest like a snake. The cursed energy lingers faintly in the air. She hasn't gone far, but still. Go look for her. Right away, master. Ryomen disappears into the corridor. Sukuna turns to leave, but his gaze lingers on her bag, slumped carelessly in the corner. A thought crosses his mind, sharp and deliberate. He crouches, his large hands rummaging through the bag with no hesitation, no care for privacy. His fingers brush against something, a small worn book. He pulls it out and his eyes gleam with interest. Man, Sukuna, why are you doing like childish stuff like reading my diary? A diary. His grin spreads wide, teeth gleaming like knives. Her diary. Perfect. His large hand nearly engulfs the book as he flips it open. A part of him expects something tedious, something dull. Instead, he's struck by the elegance of her calligraphy, the way it flows across the page like wind dancing over water. For a moment he's impressed, but he quickly shoves the thought aside. He skims through the entries, his eyes scanning lines about her travel. She writes about her work, wandering from village to village, exercising curses for a living. The words are neat but raw, her emotions carefully folded between the ink strokes. Some poems are scattered among the pages. He pauses briefly. She's not bad at it. Further down she mentions dreams, a broken vow. His eyes catch on a poem, the words pulling his focus completely. Each step I search far, calling his name to the sky. The wind gave me none. No voice, no face, only loss. My failure haunted each breath. His hand tightens slightly on the page. His grin falters for the briefest moment. She had been looking for him. A low, unreadable hum escapes his throat. He turns another page, scanning the diary more closely now. Her words dig into him, pulling at things he thought buried. It had been such a long time since a piece of writing had made him feel anything. And he has read many of them. The next entries are scattered thoughts about her journey. But the further he reads, the more the tone shifts. Her words become more recent, the ink darker and fresher. She writes about finding him at last. The shock, the happiness, the pain, the anger, and all. Yes, because the last time we saw him when we were children, he was still small. Another poem stops him in his tracks. Each eye holds the world, each arm carries heaven's weight. His beauty strikes me not for its cruelty or might, but for its unyielding grace. And this is the part he finds out that we are a monster. His eyes widen slightly. Beauty. She thinks he's beautiful. Unwanted memories surface. hazy but sharp, of her saying similar things to him when they were children. Back then, her words had annoyed him. Her optimism like a stubborn light he couldn't extinguish. A cruel smile cuts across his face. Sharp and deliberate, beautiful. She saw him surrounded by carnage, standing in the ruin of death, and called him beautiful. What a twisted mind. He keeps reading, his curiosity sharpening with every page. The poems grow different. More raw, less polished, each one like a wound torn open, her emotions spilling out, desperate to be trapped in ink. Then his eyes narrow, catching the unmistakable thread of lust woven into her words. Great, now he knows we're horny. A final poem arrests his attention, its honesty sharp and cutting. No god could tempt me, only this terrible form, these eyes, these sharp hands. I would bare my throat to him and let his desire claim mine. He stares at the lines, letting them settle. The cruel smile spreading across his lips, slow and deliberate. She has no idea what she's asking for. He snaps the diary shut, tossing it onto her bed and leaving it open where she'll find it. Toying with her will be far more entertaining than he thought. Man, he's so mean to me. Ryomen escorts you back to your room. Their sharp eyes fixed on you. You clutch the small bundle of wild herbs and berries you managed to find, your stomach turning at the thought of eating the food offered in the temple. Master Sukuna won't force you to eat the meat. The words hang in the air, cold and blunt. You glance at Ryomen, your brow furrowing. Why not? Isn't he trying to convince you that he's a monster? You don't ask the question outright, but the thought gnaws at you, so you settle for something simpler. Why does he eat it? Yes, why? There are many better things to eat. Ryomen pauses for a moment, their gaze flickering over you. Then they reply, their tone detached. It is not my place to speak. They give a brief nod before turning away, leaving you alone. You walk inside the room, and your eyes stop on the bed. Your diary lies there open, the pages fluttering slightly as they move by an invisible wind. Sukuna. You read it. Your chest tightens, humiliation and rage crashing over you like a wave. Well, time to go beat him up. The words you wrote, your thoughts, your feelings, your desires, they were yours, private, sacred, never meant for anyone else's eyes, least of all his. Heat rises in your cheeks, sharp and unrelenting, the shame cutting through you like a knife. He knows. He knows everything. You can't stand it. Without thinking, you storm out of the room, driven by an anger you can barely contain. Kick his ass! You find him training outside. Each motion is deliberate, his muscles rippling with raw power as he moves. I wanna see. Sweat glistens on his skin, tracing down the sharp lines of his tattoos, highlighting every curve and ridge. The sight makes your chest tighten, but you push the thought away, steeling yourself as you march forward. You had no right. He stops mid-motion, his breathing slightly labored. Slowly he turns to face you, his red eyes looking into yours. There's a brief moment of silence as his gaze sweeps over you, sharp and assessing. You feel a flicker of intimidation, but you force yourself to stand tall, keeping your head high. You had no right to read it. As long as you decide to stay here, I have every right. His voice is calm, laced with amusement, but there's an edge to it that makes your stomach knot. My god, this whole visual novel is just me struggling. I am on struggle street. He begins to walk towards you, his steps unhurried and deliberate. With each step, his towering presence seems to grow, the heat of his body radiating outwards, closing the space between you. Are you upset? Because I read your little dirty thoughts. The words hit you like a slap, your face heating instantly. You glare at him, your lips parting to respond, but no words come. The embarrassment burns too fiercely, knotting your throat. His laugh is sharp, mocking, cutting through the tension. Tell me, did you tremble as much writing it as you do now? Were your hands shaking when you put that filth on the paper? Or was it just your body craving something it couldn't have? Yes, I trembled. Because every time I look at you, I feel something I don't want to feel, and it disgusts me. His laugh is low, sharp and cutting, like the edge of a blade. Disgust. You can call it whatever you want, little one. Lust, desire. Dress it up however you like. It doesn't change what it is, and it doesn't make it any less true. He steps closer, forcing you to back up until your shoulder blades hit the temple wall. The air feels heavier, making it harder to think, harder to breathe. The mouth on his stomach twitches, the movement drawing your gaze. Its lips curl faintly, its presence unbearably close to your chest. The movement draws your gaze despite yourself, and a rush of heat floods through you. Shame and something darker twisting in your gut. What was it again? Let his desire claim mine. Your words, weren't they? So, what's stopping you now? He steps closer, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous whisper. Go on, bare your throat. Just like you said you would. Or were those just fantasies for the page? He steps closer still, space between you non-existent. Instinctively, your hands shoot up, pressing against his abdomen in an attempt to stop him. Give his boobies a squeeze while you're at it. The heat of his skin burns against your palms, the hard planes of his muscles unyielding under your touch. He doesn't move back. Instead, his voice drops lower, so quiet it's almost a growl. Didn't you write that I'm beautiful? Then worship me. Your breath catches. Before you can think, his lower hands close around your torso, forcing your palms to move against him. The heat under your skin intensifies, your heart pounding so hard you're certain he can hear it. His grin widening. You try to pull away, your mind screaming at you to stop, but his grip is firm, unrelenting. You know what to say if you want to leave. His voice is calm, almost bored, but there's a wicked glint in his eyes that dares you to say the words. No. You shiver, your breath coming in shallow gasps. You know the words, but they won't come. You don't want to say them, not because of pride, not because of fear, but because some buried part of you doesn't want this to end. The thought terrifies you, but it's undeniable. A desire that threatens to consume you entirely. Yeah, this is like me when I play any sort of dating sim that has like a questionable love interest. Or when I see a hot villain in a video game. The thought terrifies you, but it's undeniable. A desire that threatens to consume you entirely. The mouth on his stomach shifts. Its grotesque lips pulling back to reveal the wet, writhing tongue. It flicks out, brushing against your wrist. Hehe, do it again. But lower? You flinch at the sensation, your breath hitching, but you don't pull away. His gaze narrows slightly, the amusement in his eyes growing. Look at you. Just a touch and you're already falling apart. Before you can respond, his arms move. Two of them wrap around your waist, lifting you effortlessly, while another hooks under your knees. The ease in which he handles you reminds you of just how powerless you are against him. The world tilts as he lays back against the wooden floor of the temple, one arm propping up his head as he watches you with lazy amusement. You're on him, spread over the grotesque mouth on his stomach. Oh my, oh god. Say the sentence and I'll stop, but we both know you won't. His tone is calm, almost indifferent, but his smirk tells another story. He knows exactly how far he's pushing you and he's enjoying every second of it. Oh my god, oh dear lord, oh wow. He's like huge. Sukuna's eyes remain fixed on you, his gaze predatory. That's it. Don't hold back. Show me how pathetic you really are. Your breathing growing shallow and erratic. The thing that's really getting to me is the fact that he's just so nonchalant and does not care. Like, this man knows he's hot. Ugh, God. Jesus. His arm holds you firmly in place, trapping you against the source of your torment. No matter how much your feelings disgust you, you'll always come crawling back for more. Because deep down, you want this. And that's the part of you I'll enjoy breaking the most. Your mind reels. The pressure builds rapidly, overwhelming and all-consuming until it crashes over you in a blinding wave. Sukuna chuckles softly, the sound low and satisfied. As he lets go of your wrists, you collapse against him. His arms remain firm around your waist, keeping you in place even as your body sags against him, boneless and spent. Okay, now that that is all said and done, can we slap him? All that resistance, all those sharp words, and yet, here you are. The words sting, sharp and demeaning, but there's no bite in his tone. It almost feels indulgent, as though he's toying with you but with no intention of pushing you further right now. You don't reply. You can't. Your breath is shallow, your body trembling with aftershocks, your mind a chaotic swirl of emotions. Humiliation, frustration, but also something darker and deeper and far more terrifying. The silence stretches, thick and heavy, broken only by the sound of your uneven breaths and the faint hum of the wind outside. His hand rests idly on your hip now, his grip relaxed, but you're acutely aware of the heat of his palm against your skin. It feels possessive but not confining. And finally, after what feels like an eternity, you muster the strength to move. Slowly, you lift yourself off his chest, your body aching with the effort. His hand slides away without resistance. As he watches you, his expression unreadable but his gaze sharp, following your every movement. Alright, slap him. When you sit up, your legs unsteady beneath you. You avoid looking at his eyes. You don't trust yourself to meet his eyes, not now. Not after everything. Done already. I thought you'd stay longer, considering how much you seem to enjoy yourself. The heat rises to your cheeks, shame burning through you, but you refuse to let his words trap you. You straighten your back, pulling your clothes back into place with trembling hands. You hesitate, the words catching in your throat. What can you even say? He smirks, sitting up slowly as if to loom over you again, but he doesn't touch you this time. Go ahead. Leave. Or stay. The choice is yours, little one. His tone is casual, dismissive even, and you don't miss the glint of curiosity in his crimson eyes. It's as if he's testing you, wanting to see what you'll do next. You stand, your legs unsteady but your resolve firm. Without a word, you turn and walk towards your room. You don't look back, not at him. Not at the smirk you're sure is still playing on his lips. Sukuna grabs his weapons. The Abe clan has been boasting about their army of angels, saying they could bring even him to his knees. Fools. He'll teach them what happens when they overstep. The thought of their screams excites him, but he's surprised to feel something else. reluctance. The realization makes him grin, sharp and cruel. His mind drifts. To her, at first he thought her fascination with him was nothing more than curiosity. Her diary hinted at admiration, maybe even attraction, but it couldn't have been all that. He'd assumed she would flee when faced with the reality of him, but she didn't. Her body trembled, her breasts uneven, but she didn't turn away. His grin sharpens. She doesn't flinch at his monstrous form. Not at his 4 eyes, not at the mouth that splits his flesh, not at the destruction he leaves behind. She doesn't flee. Not when he places human flesh before her. Instead, she looks at him like he's something divine. Yes, there is something wrong with me, Sukuna, I am aware. And then there are her poems. Beautiful, she still calls him. Even now. She shouldn't feel this way. He knows she shouldn't be drawn to him, but she is, and that's what makes it so intoxicating. She doesn't just tolerate his monstrosity, she desires it. Craves it. If she won't leave on her own, then he'll see how far she'll go. How much fun it'll be to corrupt her. The last thread tying him to what he used to be. The last fragile piece of humanity he hasn't crushed. The thought hums low in his chest, dark and thrilling. He doesn't need to prove he's a monster. He just needs to show her how monstrous she can become. The trident hums faintly, and in his grip, his grin stretches wide, sharp and feral. He'll teach the Abe clan their place first, but after, he has something far more entertaining waiting for him. The moment you wake, your body remembers before your mind does. The ghost of his touch. Everything rushes back in suffocating clarity. Shame prickles along your spine. The memory of his mocking words still echoing. No matter how much your feelings disgust you, you'll always come crawling back for more. You push the thought away, but it clings to you like a shadow. Impossible to escape. Sitting up on the futon, you pull your knees to your chest trying to steady your breathing. You should hate him. You want to hate him. He tore through your defenses, left you trembling in his hands. And the worst part is, he was right. Your hands tremble as you press them to your face. You stayed. He didn't push you away, didn't force you, didn't mock you as you lay on his chest, raw and spent. He let you leave on your own terms. Somehow that makes it worse, because you didn't leave. Not right away. You stayed because some small traitorous part of you wanted to. The shame burns hotter now, twisting your stomach into knots. How can you face him again, knowing he saw all of you, your surrender, your desire? How can you meet his gaze without hearing his voice, without feeling his hands on your skin? You come crawling back for more. Yes, I will. You grit your teeth and shove the memory away. You won't give him the satisfaction, and you won't let him win. Determined to reclaim some control, you push to your feet and leave your room. You face him, pretend nothing happened if you must, but you won't let him see you falter. Let me guess, he returns injured and we nurse him and he falls in love with us. But the air outside your room feels different. Too still, too quiet. He's gone. Relief and disappointment knocked together in your chest. The contradiction dizzying. You shouldn't feel disappointed not after what he's done, but the hollow ache lingers anyway and you hate yourself for it. Spotting Urame in the corridor, you force yourself to approach them. Their expression is calm, unreadable as always. Where is he? Master Sukuna has left to deal with some nuisances. Who? I don't believe Master Sukuna's affairs require your involvement. Their calm, matter-of-fact tone makes your chest tighten. You remember the destruction in the villages. The screams, the blood, the merciless way Sukuna tore through lives. The image now collides with the new view you have of him. You should write more. Their voice startles you, breaking the silence. Master Sukuna enjoyed it. Your gaze drops. Anger and shame prickling at your skin. Of course he did. Why would I want to please him? Urame gives you a pointed look, the expression calm but knowing, like they see something that you can't. Why are you still here then? They leave without another word, but their question stays with you, encircling in your mind. You return to your room and sit in silence. After a moment you reach for your diary. Its familiar weight feels grounding in your hands, though it does nothing to calm the storm inside you. You stare at the blank page for what feels like an eternity before picking up your brush. If you can't make sense of these feelings, maybe the ink will. Sukuna returns a week later. The sound of the temple gates creaking open makes your breath catch. You tell yourself it's nothing. You're not waiting for him, but when he steps inside, a spark ignites in your chest. His crimson eyes sweep the courtyard before landing on you. The brief contact sends a jolt through you, and you quickly look away, feigning indifference, but still your heart races. He carries several baskets in his arms, their contents hidden beneath tightly woven lids. You try not to think about what's inside, but the pit in your stomach churns anyway. Conflicting emotions twist within you, relief and dread, and something you can't name. Dinner only makes it worse. Every time we see him, we are just horny. You sit across from him, the low table between you doing nothing to lessen his presence. The smell of the stew wafts up, but instead of hunger, it fills you with unease. Your eyes flick to his bowl, then to the slow, deliberate way he eats. You can't stop picturing the meat's origins, the screams you've tried to forget. The tension builds until it spills out. Why do you keep eating this meat? Your voice is quieter than you intended, but it's out now. He pauses mid-motion, chopsticks hovering, and looks up at you. The air around him feels heavier, each breath harder to take. Are you saying I need to stop? The bluntness of his tone freezes you for a moment, but you press on. It upsets me. His eyes narrow slightly. His gaze unreadable. The pause stretches painfully long until he speaks again. Why would I care about what you feel? The bluntness of his words cut deep, slicing through any retort you might have had. Your gaze drops to your bowl as you swallow the lump forming in your throat. You shove a piece of food into your mouth, chewing mechanically, though it tastes like ash. It really is awful. Truly, utterly awful. And yet we still want him. You should finish quickly and leave. The room falls into a tense, suffocating silence, broken only by the occasional clatter of chopsticks and the faint rustle of fabric. The weight of his presence presses down on you, but you refuse to look up, not until his voice breaks the stillness, calm but lined with something bitter and jagged. When I was taken from that temple by that noble, he didn't want me as a servant. The casualness in his tone doesn't match the undercurrent of venom beneath it. You glance up, startled by the sudden shift in conversation. He was an entertainer, a collector of curiosities. He put on exhibitions for the court. Monstrous children, he called us. He pauses, his gaze dropping to the bowl in front of you. The steam rises, curling between you like smoke. One day, he wanted to know which one of us was stronger. He kept us in cages, no food for days. If we wanted to survive, we had to kill and eat the other. His chopsticks hover over a piece of meat before he places it in his mouth and chews. And that's what I did. The casual way he says it makes the heaviness in your chest almost unbearable. Your heart aches, and the place on your leg where his mother once gripped you seems to burn, as if her touch still lingers, as if her promise still weighs on you. I'm sorry. Why? I made a promise to your mother that I'd protect you and I failed. I'm sorry. The words tremble as they leave your lips, raw and heavy with guilt. Protect me. His scoff cuts through the air. Sharp and dismissive, but there's something underneath it. Something fleeting and fragile that flickers and fades almost too quickly to catch. You couldn't even protect yourself. What makes you think you had the power to save me? He leans back slightly, his gaze cold but faltering for the briefest of moments. Spare me your pity. It's too late for that. The silence that follows is suffocating. He continues eating, his expression unreadable, and you sit there, the weight of his words pressing down on you. But the question claws its way to the surface, desperate and impossible to suppress. Why do you still keep eating the meat now? His chopsticks pause. Slowly he meets your gaze, his crimson eyes catching in the dim light, glowing faintly like embers in the dark. It's what monsters do. It's what I am. It's what you decided to be. The statement lingers between you, quiet but cutting. His gaze narrows and the air in the room thickening with unspoken anger. It was decided for me. No, it wasn't. He rises abruptly, towering over you. His sudden movement sends a jolt through your chest, but you force yourself to stay seated. For a moment, you understand why people call him a monster, why they fear him, but that's not what you see. With all the talking you're doing, I suppose you're done eating. Get up. Show me what you've written in the past few days. Urame told me you've been writing. Your heart skips a beat, and you glance towards Urame, who stands at the side of the room looking faintly amused. Okay, he gestures for you to lead the way, his crimson eyes watching you intently. You rise slowly, your body stiff with tension, and walk towards your room. His footsteps are quiet but purposeful behind you, the air around him almost suffocating. Sukuna reclines on your futon, his massive frame making the spacious room feel impossibly small. His crimson eyes glint with that lazy amusement as he watches you. Read it for me. You hesitate but eventually obey, your voice trembling slightly as you read aloud. Poem about longing. The boy I once knew, gone, buried beneath power. Still I see glimpses, a shadow behind your strength, a ghost caught within your form. Sukuna listens in silence as you read the poem aloud. For a moment his expression is unreadable, the sharpness in his crimson eyes dulling ever so slightly. But the softness doesn't last long. His lips curl into a cruel smile and he leans back, folding his arms. A ghost, huh? How poetic of you. Do you think I care to be mourned like some tragic relic of your past? He leans forward now, his towering presence overwhelming as his crimson eyes bore into yours. If you're hoping to find that boy again, you're more foolish than I thought. If you're just gonna keep mocking me, why don't you write one yourself? Let's see how you fare. He pauses, his crimson gaze fixed on you with an intensity that makes your skin prickle. Just when you start to wonder if he'll dismiss you altogether, he speaks. Prepare the ink. Curiosity flickers in your chest as you gather the materials. When you return, he takes the brush in his large hand, his claws gleaming faintly in the light. Give it to me. You hesitate, your fingers tightening around the diary. Reluctance flares within you as he motions for it, but when his eyes narrow, you surrender it. He pulls it from your hands with ease, his movement deliberate as he flips through the pages. And finally he begins to write. The strokes of his brush are bold, precise, and purposeful. When he leans back and slides the book towards you, you read the haiku and scrunch your nose. His soft hands cling to life, but they crumble under weight. The strong carve their path. This is much better. Your eyes snap up to meet his, incredulous. No, it's not. His gaze snaps to yours, his expression hardening. You dare defy me? Yes? The menace in his tone sends a shiver racing up your spine, but you refuse to back down, pointing at the page. You square your shoulders, summoning every ounce of defiance you can muster. Where's the seasonal word? The tension shifts. Slowly, his lips curve into a grin. One that, for the first time, lacks cruelty. Your turn. Write another poem. Your fingers tremble as you take the brush and begin to write. You feel his eyes on you, their weight unbearable. The attention sears your nerves, every stroke of the brush becoming hard to focus on. It feels as though he's undressing you with his gaze, peeling away your composure layer by layer. He leans over your shoulder. Okay, buddy, you're a bit too close. His breath brushing against your neck. You freeze as his low chuckle fills the silence. What's the matter? Can't focus? I'll dictate it to you then. Oh god, why am I flirting with poetry? His words feel like a trap, a taunt you can't escape. Before you can protest, his voice dips lower, rough yet measured as he speaks the lines. Fingers find your depths, dragging cries from parted lips. As he speaks, his lips brush against the curve of your neck, igniting every nerve under your skin. You gasp, your breath hitching. Keep going. Don't stop. My god, how do you make a writing session so dirty? Your hand trembles as you write, the brush faltering with every word. The warmth of his mouth trails along your shoulder, leaving a path of goosebumps in its wake. Your thighs quake for me. A throne I've conquered and claimed. I leave no part untouched. You feel his hands on your waist now. Their heat bleeding through the fabric. You manage to finish the poem, your breath shallow and uneven. Sukuna. The moment his name leaves your lips, he moves. In one fluid motion, he pulls you towards him. His hands tighten on your waist, dragging you closer until your knees bump against his thighs. He leans in, the sheer size of him dwarfing you even now as he sits, his broad shoulders and towering frame making you feel impossibly small. You barely have time to process the proximity before his lips crash into yours. The force of the kiss steals the breath from your lungs, his mouth hot and demanding as it moves against you. He doesn't lean down far, nor when it's easier to pull you up instead. His hands grip your waist with bruising strength, lifting you slightly as he tilts your body towards his. He pulls back, just enough to shrug off fabric, revealing not one, but two. There he is, Sukuna and his dual heavenly pillars. Luckily for me, I usually play rogue and I like to wield daggers. Your breath catches in your throat and your eyes widen. He smirks at your reaction. What's wrong? Too much for your pathetic little mind to handle? Or do you like what you see? I like it. Of course you do. Stop calling me out. But liking and taking are two very different things. Let's see if you can handle it. I can handle it just fine. Don't tease, pet. Worship me properly. And the sheer weight makes your head spin. That's it. Scared of both? Don't worry. I'll only use one this time. Relax. The feeling is overwhelming. I told you to relax. Or is this too much for you, little one? Should I stop? You shake your head. It feels as though he's carved a space just for him. Do you feel it? What would your past self think? The girl who wanted to save me is now doing this with me instead. Just stop talking. Oh my god. Good lord. What was that? The feeling is maddening. Jesus. Oh my god. Some of these lines. How does it feel? Doing something like this with the monster you call your childhood friend. Stop calling yourself that. You're not. He speeds up and the feeling builds. It continues to build until it consumes you. The tension snaps and you reach your peak. And Sukuna soon follows, and his hands hold you almost tenderly. The gentleness sends a confusing jolt through you, your heart betraying you with a flicker of hope. Could he actually? But the thought soon vanishes as he removes himself. Sukuna straightens, adjusting his sash with deliberate ease, his expression one of detached amusement. Ryomen will help you with bathing. I don't need. His eyes flash, silencing you instantly. Enough. His gaze lingers on you for a moment, sharp and unreadable. Satisfaction, amusement, you can't tell. Then he turns, leaves without another word. His footsteps echoing down the hall. The door slides open, and moments later, just as you cover yourself, Ryomen steps inside. Their expression calm, but their gaze sharp as it sweeps over you, taking in the aftermath. The tone is quiet, but it carries an edge of amusement. I told you he liked your writing. Your cheeks burn, heat rising to your face. But does he like me? The thought rises unbidden, sharp and insistent, tying itself to Ryomen's words in a way you can't shake. It feels absurd, pointless even, but it digs in, unwelcome and heavy. The question lingers as you follow Ryomen out the room. Your chest tightens with its weight, your thoughts swirling in a chaotic mess. When is he gonna fall in love with me and repent? She's affecting him. He knows it. The moment stray haikus begin forming in his mind during training. He imagines her reaction, her scowl, the way her brows draw together. What is going on? It's the human part of him, he realizes. clawing its way to the surface because of her presence. There's also the urge to rush things, to claim her completely. It simmers beneath the surface. It tamps all these feelings down with ease. Power isn't just about taking, it's about waiting, savoring the moment before you strike. And it's not fun if she doesn't come to him willingly. So he withdraws, tells her to keep writing, to pour her thoughts into that little diary of hers. He never reads it. He doesn't need to. It's enough to see her expectant face every day. Her cautious glances, the flicker of anticipation in her eyes when she thinks he might ask for it. It's amusing. Man, you are a dick. When she finally realizes what he is, the monster she pretends not to see, and decides to leave, he might almost miss her. The thought scrapes against his patience, sharp and unwelcome. He shifts his focus to practical matters. Their provisions are running low. They'll need to make a trip to a nearby village for more meat. The thinking about it grates on him. How inconvenient. How annoying. Why doesn't Uraume just go out and do it for you? The days go shorter, the air colder. Sukuna orders you to keep writing. His tone is casual, as if he were asking you for a drink. Yet he never asks to see what you've written. The silence between you stretches, taut and brimming with unspoken tension, like a storm hovering just out of reach. Neither of you move to break it, both unwilling to surrender whatever unspoken battle is taking place. What confuses you most is how Sukuna barely acts like the monster he chose to be anymore. He doesn't push you the way he did when you first arrived. It's like you're just living together now. Two people bound by a strange, shared existence. Frustrated, you turn to Uraume one afternoon. Does he even know what he wants from me? Uraume turns to you, their expression neutral but tinged with the faintest trace of exasperation. You need to go to him of your own accord. The words hang in the air, cutting through the quiet. You let out a huff. So he just wants to humiliate me again. Uraume's silence is damning. Instead of answering, they glance towards the forest, deflecting the conversation. We'll have to go hunting for more boar meat soon. You frown, caught off guard by the abrupt change in subject. More? Don't we have enough? Uraume pauses, their expression unreadable, their gaze flickering briefly before meeting yours again. Master Sukuna is less inclined to eat human meat these days. You blink, a flicker of hope stirring in your chest. Did your words finally reach him? Has he changed, just a little for your sake? I could fix him. No, you can't, Yuri. And sometimes you don't have to fix him. Sometimes you just love people as they are. And people aren't pet projects. Before you can voice any thoughts, Uraume turns and walks away, leaving you alone with your unanswered questions. Dinner feels strangely quiet tonight. For the first time, you glance at Sukuna's plate and don't feel the usual disgust churning in your stomach. Something about the absence of human meat eases the tension in your chest, fleeting relief that surprises even you. A faint, involuntary smile flickers across your lips. Sukuna's voice cuts through the stillness, low and sharp. Why are you smiling? Uraume told me a joke. Sukuna's gaze shifts sharply to Uraume, his crimson eyes narrowing with suspicion. Uraume's eyes widen slightly and they quickly shake their head, a clear denial. Then, with an irritated glare at you, they clear their throats, straightening as if to deflect attention. There was a Fujiwara informant in the village today. Your chopsticks pause midair, your stomach twisting. The Fujiwara clan, the ones who had commissioned you to exorcise the curse ravaging the villagers. The curse that turned out to be Sukuna. Even now they're still after him. Sukuna leans back, his posture deceptively relaxed, though his eyes gleam with a predatory edge. I thought they learned their lesson after the Abe clan and their angels. I guess not. The informant was too close for comfort. Why did they decide to attack the temple? Their words hang in the air, like a blade waiting to drop. The weight of their implication coils around your chest, squeezing tight. Yeah, what if I die, Sukuna? You glance up and immediately regret it. Both of them are looking at you now. What? Uraume doesn't flinch as they deliver the next words, blunt and cold. As Master Sukuna's pet, you're a liability. Your chest tightens, heat rushing to your face as the insult settles in. Excuse me? Sukuna sighs deeply, dragging a hand down his face as though Uraume's comment has inconvenienced him. Uraume. But Uraume's gaze remains steady, unapologetic, and the damage is already done. You rise sharply from the table. So I'm just a pet for you. Sukuna drops his hand, leveling you with a stare. His eyes gleam with quiet menace and his lips curl into a mocking smirk. If you're not my pet, then what are you? You can't possibly think we're something. Oh, wow. I was a little hopeful. His words slice through you, cruel and dismissive, the sharp edge of his mockery cutting deeper than you'd expected. The heat in your chest shifts, no longer just anger but something far more complicated. Hurt. You're awful, yet you're still here. You bite your lip, trembling with rage and humiliation, and storm out of the room without another word. As you pass through the doorway, Sukuna's voice follows you, calm and indifferent. Let her go. You rush through the corridors, your steps echoing against the wooden floors until you reach the courtyard. Without hesitation, you leap into the air, letting the wind wrap around you and carry you upward. The currents swell, brushing against your skin, cool and freeing. For a moment, you let yourself sink into the sensation of weightlessness. Up here, far above it all, you can pretend none of it matters. The village, Uraume, him. Man, Is me floating in the air gonna alert the Fujiwara clan to where the temple is? But the lie doesn't hold. Even with the wind at your back and the sky beneath your feet, you can't escape the pull he has on you. The questions circle like storm clouds in your mind. Why do I stay? Is it the desire for him? The one who everyone fears but who makes your heart race in ways you don't understand? Is it the binding vow that even after broken still pulls at you? Or is it something else? The sky shifts as the sun dips lower, painting the horizon in shades of gold and crimson, and you remain there until the light fades, the evening air growing cooler against your skin. And yet, no matter how high you rise, you can't shake the weight in your chest. You know, I feel like if we're trying to remain hidden, floating above the sky in midair is not good. The next morning, you wake shivering. Your body feels heavy, your skin hot to the touch. Even with the blankets pulled tightly around you, the chill seeps in. At some point, you barely register Urame entering your room with a breakfast tray before sleep pulls you under again. When you wake up next, Urame is kneeling beside you, the hand pressed lightly against your forehead. The touch is cool and grounding, but it startles you. You weakly push the hand away. Leave me alone. Your voice is rough and strained. Even the words scratch at your throat. You have a fever. You groan softly, turning your head towards the wall. The wind yesterday flying for so long without thinking. Of course it had to catch up to you, but it doesn't feel that bad. You're used to it. It's nothing to worry about. I'm fine. Rest. You should feel better soon. The tone is calm, but there's a faint hint of something else. Concern. You watch, puzzled, as Urame rises smoothly and leaves the room without another word. The quiet settles in again, and exhaustion pulls you back under. You close your eyes, the heat of the fever dragging you into restless sleep. Sukuna watches as Urame steps out of her room, sliding the door shut behind them. Their expression, usually stoic, is tinged with something faintly unusual. What's the matter? Is she throwing a fit? The words are sharp, biting, though the annoyance in his tone runs deeper. He had been waiting for her to come to him, to give in, to willingly cross the distance between them and admit what he already knows she feels. That pull towards him, that need. But now, Urame has ruined it. His plan to make her crawl is delayed. He doesn't know what grates on him more, the interruption or the fact that he finds himself caring about the weight. It seems she's ill, master. Sukuna's eyes narrow, the words catching him off guard. Ill. His gaze flickers towards the closed door, irritation sparking in his chest. What a nuisance. How can someone be so fragile? Urame hesitates before speaking, their tone careful. I can't heal her myself. We don't have the necessary medicine here. I'm afraid she might. The words trail off, but they don't need to finish. Sukuna's eyes immediately snap back to the door, his jaw tightening. A sudden sharp feeling, something he refuses to name, rises within him, but he stomps it down just as quickly. Why should he care if she lives or dies? You already care. His mind latches onto the justification. She's been entertaining, that's all. But then why does the idea of her absence feel like a stone lodged in his chest? I'll take care of it. Urame nods, stepping aside without a word. He exhales sharply, dragging a clawed hand through his hair as he approaches the door, sliding it open without hesitation. The sight inside makes him pause. She's curled up on the futon, her small form trembling beneath the blankets. Her cheeks are flushed with fever, and soft, incoherent murmurs escape her lips as she twists weakly in her sleep. Pathetic. Utterly pathetic. Yes, well, you're into it. So who's the pathetic one now? And yet his feet move forward almost on their own. Memories stir. Unbidden and unwanted. A bitterly cold winter. The ache of freezing nights when survival felt like a cruel joke. He remembers her. Smaller then, using her wind to warm them both as they huddle together. As she clench her teeth and stay awake for hours, shaking from the strain, refusing to let him suffer alone. Sukuna's jaw tightens, his lips pulling into a scowl. He lowers himself to the ground and leans over her. For a moment he hovers, debating, and then he scoops her up effortlessly. Her body is limp, light in his arms, her head lolling against his chest. She mumbles something incoherent, her breath warm against his skin, but she doesn't wake. Carefully, he lowers himself onto the futon, keeping her cradled against him. Heat radiates from his body like a barrier, swallowing her shivers. Reverse cursed energy flows from him, a fleeting touch that repairs what little damage there is. Urame was dramatic. There was hardly anything to heal. Her trembling subsides. He stares at the ceiling, his face expressionless though his mind churns. He should leave, and yet he doesn't. He imagines her reaction when she wakes. The horror, the humiliation, the thought tugs faintly at his lips. No, he'll wait, just a little longer. The world is on fire. Flames rage uncontrollably, devouring everything in their path. Sukuna stands at the center of it all, destruction incarnate. His laughter echoes through the chaos as sorcerers throw themselves at him only to perish one after another. Each attack is futile, but as one falls, another rises to take their place. All of them united by a singular purpose, to bring him down. And finally they do. You see it, his exorcism. The moment he's undone and killed like a curse. You wake with a gasp, your chest heaving, the vision lingers in your mind like smoke, choking and vivid. Everything is warm, so warm. You try to move to pull away from the heat, but arms hold you still, strong and unyielding. Calm down. The voice rumbles, Low, steady and commanding, sending a shock through your system. Your eyes fly open and you twist, your movements sluggish and weak to find him there. What are you doing here? You shove against his chest but your strength falters. Sukuna remains where he is, his arms loose around you but unmoving, as if humouring your attempt to free yourself. Doesn't stop you when you finally wriggle out of his hold. You stumble back, almost falling to the floor, as he leans back lazily on your futon, taking up all the space as if it were his rightful throne. You had a fever. I healed you. You owe me. You stare at him. Your breathing still uneven as the dream flashes behind your eyes. The fire, his laughter, his fall. I dreamed about your death. The words slip out soft and trembling. Sukuna raises an eyebrow, faint amusement flickering across his features. If you continue on this path, it'll lead to your ruin. Your voice is quieter now, but the weight of the dream presses against you heavy and unrelenting. And you believe that's an omen. His chuckle is sharp, almost dismissive. But there's something in the way his eyes linger on you as if he's testing your resolve. It felt real. I made my choice. His voice is steady, resolute, as if the words were carved in stone. If I ever lose, I'll accept it and move on. But until then, this is the path I'll walk. It's too late to turn back now. He pauses, his gaze never leaving yours. I won't change. Not even for you. The honesty in his voice is like a blade. It cuts through the silence, leaving behind a truth you can't deny. He's chosen his path, one paved with destruction, blood and ruin. Another choice is yours. Will you follow him into the abyss? You lower your gaze, your fists curling tightly at your sides. The thought of leaving tugs at the edge of your mind, but you know you can't. All that's left is to try to understand him. This man who is both familiar and foreign, whose actions seem to contradict the monster he claims to be. All that's left is to try to understand him. This man who's both familiar and foreign, whose actions seem to contradict the monster he claims to be. Why'd you heal me? I was doing just fine. A dead pet is of no use to me. Stop calling me that. The words leave your lips before you can think, but the sharpness you intend doesn't land. His smirk only deepens, his gaze trailing over you in a way that makes your skin prickle. What do you want me to call you then? Lover? Your breath hitches audibly, your heart stuttering in your chest. He hears it, of course he hears it. His laughter is low, rich, and infuriatingly confident. You're so easy to read. Get out! I will call you that word, if you prove to me that's what you want. His voice is impossibly soft. A velvet thread wrapped in steel. Not with your palms. Not with your silence. He leans forward just slightly, enough for the heat of his body to brush against you. Show me. Show you what? Bends over. The space between you feels suffocating. You're frozen, caught in his gaze. Every nerve in your body screams at the closeness. Your breath quickens as your eyes flick to his lips, then away. You burn under his scrutiny, the heat of his body radiating towards you like a flame you can't resist. He doesn't move. He's waiting for you to make the first move, to come to him willingly, and you hate him for it. You hate the way he stripped away every defense you have, left you raw and exposed, until there's nothing left but the truth you don't want to face. Your fingers twitch at your sides, hesitant and uncertain. The silence stretches unbearably, the tension thick enough to suffocate you, and yet, you know the only way to end it is to move. And finally, you do. Your hand brushes his knee, tentative and trembling, and even that small contact feels like a spark igniting something deep within you. His gaze sharpens, his lips curling into a faint knowing smile. Go on. His voice is low, almost a whisper, but it's enough to send a shiver down your spine. Fine. You want me to show you? Then I will. Go, Yinny, go! Get it! Hop on his heavenly pillars, you can take it! I say before I die from being torn apart. Your eyes lock with his, unwavering despite the heat coursing through your veins. You shift closer, your knees pressing into the futon and your hands find his chest, tracing the lines of his tattoos, the heat of his skin searing beneath your palms. Still, he doesn't touch you. He watches you, his expression unreadable, but his eyes never leaves you. You lean in, closing the distance and press your lips to his. The last of your hesitation crumbles. You don't know if it's anger or longing, but the need to close the distance to feel him consumes you entirely. The girl. Whoa! For the first time, Sukuna moves, and the fire you felt in your dream feels real now, burning between you. And for the first time, you stop fighting, because this is what you wanted all along. I'm tiny compared to him. He's massive. In more ways than one, towers over you, his crimson eyes gleaming with amusement. Oh my god! His laugh rumbles through the room, dark and mocking. I didn't even have to try to corrupt you. Heat blooms in your chest, but you don't flinch. You meet his gaze boldly, your voice steady. Can you stop talking and hurry up? His eyes flash with something dangerous, his smirk widening into a sharp grin. So disrespectful. There is a inside, oh my god, there is a inside view of his heavenly pillars absolutely spelunking your caverns. Wow. Oh, Jesus. Where is it all going? My god, Sukuna is this domain expanding my insides. The stretch is overwhelming. Yeah, I bet it's overwhelming. Good god. Look at you. Shameless. Greedy little thing. You don't even care how corrupted you become, do you? I don't. Hell yeah, let's go, Yiddy. Shameless and proud of it. You've fallen so far. Maybe this is exactly where you're meant to be. You don't care about his words anymore. All you want is him. Go on. Show me how much you love being ruined. Sukuna! The words push you over, and a wave crashes over you. His gaze softens slightly. As he watches you, he adjusts you into his arms. One of his lower hands supporting your back while another tugs a blanket over the both of you. Good job, love. Do you really mean that, or are you just saying it for decorative sake? Sukuna, you lean forward and kiss him, catching him off guard. He doesn't pull away, doesn't react for a moment, letting you do what you want as his eyes stay fixed on you. Slowly his hands slide to your waist, grounding you in place. You trace the tattoos on his face, your fingers brushing lightly over the black lines etched into his skin. How did you get them? For a moment, his expression softens into something distant, almost thoughtful. When my cursed technique developed, I killed the noble who took me from the temple. I was still weak back then, so they managed to overpower me. It took a few men, but they succeeded. The others I did myself. Ryomen helped. He doesn't elaborate, but he doesn't need to. You understand? He marked himself deliberately, fully embracing the monster people already believed him to be, as if to spite them, to become something worse than they ever imagined. You wonder, for a fleeting moment, what he might have been if the world hadn't cursed him. You're thinking that I can change again, aren't you? He hums softly, neither denying nor confirming it. You're not gonna fight him about this. It won't change anything. The choice is his to make. Do what you think is best. The path is yours to walk. At the end of it all, you can tell me if it was worth it. His lips twitch into something halfway between a smirk and a sneer. You planning on hanging around for long? You don't want me to. He exhales sharply, leaning closer, his words dismissive even as his actions betray him. Do what you wish. It doesn't matter to me. Man, don't be petty. But then he pushes you down, his lips capturing yours. His actions full of intent and fire, a direct contradiction to the indifference in his tone. The seasons change. Sukuna doesn't, and he's still the same. A force of destruction tearing down villages that refuse to bow to him. But sometimes, just sometimes, you catch glimpses of the boy you once knew. The boy who helped you steal rice from the temple kitchens, grinning conspiratorially when you both escaped without being caught. He's still there, hidden beneath the layers of cruelty and bloodshed, surfacing in rare moments when he thinks you aren't looking. You write poetry together now. Sukuna never talks about his feelings, but his words betray him. Through his writing, you feel the weight of emotions he'll never say aloud. His touch, too, speaks volumes in silence. Gentle when it doesn't have to be, lingering longer than he'd ever admit. Dreams of his mother stop. The echoes of her desperate plea, the promise you made, fades from your mind. You no longer see the disaster you thought would claim him. Maybe. Just maybe you averted it. Maybe being by Sukuna's side has rewritten your fate. The three of you walk back from a hunt one cold evening. The air bites at your skin. The sky above a dark grey, heavy with snow that threatens to fall. As you approach the temple, the wind shifts. A soft, playful breeze brushes against your ear, carrying an almost inaudible whisper. Go ahead, walk forward. Something tugs at your gut, a quiet warning, and sensation you can't explain. You glance at Sukuna, who's helping Urame carry the game you hunted. You listen to the breeze. Without a word, you step ahead, leaving them behind as you cross the threshold of the temple. Wait, did I just give myself a bad ending? What's happening? He senses it too late. A shift in the air, sharp and wrong, but it comes a second too late. Oh, god damn it! His crimson eyes snap up, his gaze locking onto a retracting form as she disappears into the temple. No! The explosion rips through the air. Deafening and blinding, the temple implodes in a flash of cursed energy, collapsing in on itself, disintegrating into nothing. The force sends dust and debris tearing through the air. But Sukuna doesn't feel it. His body is frozen, his mind blank as the scene unfolds. When the smoke clears, the ruins are silent, empty. He can't feel her anymore. Oh, no! No heartbeat, no cursed energy. No whisper of her presence on the wind. Nothing. There's nothing left, nothing to fix. Nothing to bring back. His jaw clenches, his teeth grinding audibly. His claws flex, curling into fists at his side. The air around him crackles with cursed energy, wild and suffocating. Master. Urame's voice is soft, uncertain. The usual composure slipping, but Sukuna doesn't look at them. The last human part of him is gone. The last warmth he didn't realize he still carried. The last piece of himself that wasn't a monster. And isn't this what he wanted? Wasn't this his plan all along, to sever that tie? To destroy that part of him that still clung to something human? Well, we're gonna go back and do the happy ending so that we can cling to him forever. The thought curdles in his mind. A bitter, suffocating weight. But then there's movement. A group of sorcerers step out from behind the temple ruins, their cursed energy flaring like fireflies against the darkness. Ryomen Sukuna. He slices them apart in a heartbeat, There's no hesitation, no mercy. Their bodies fall in silence, broken before they even realize what happened. More are coming, the Fujiwara clan. He feels them swarming in the distance, their cursed energy flickering weakly, insignificant like insects. His lips pull back into a snarl, bearing sharp teeth. He'll show them now. The monster they expect. No, he'll be even worse. Much worse. His hands rise slowly. Deliberate, the air around him trembling under the sheer weight of his cursed energy. No, he's domain expanding, but he's not domain expanding me. The words reverberate like a death knell, low and final, malevolent shrine. Sukuna closes the book in his hands, the weight of its cover, delicate scrawled verses inside. It means nothing to him. Poetry hasn't made him feel anything in a long time. This is sad. Why is there angst in my smut? Not since she died. He made sure there wasn't anything left to feel. He submerged himself in it, in hatred and malice and cursed energy so pure and vile that it drowned the lingering remains of her warmth. He took baths in it over and over, until every shred of humanity she left behind was scorched away. Now, even the wind brushing against his skin barely reminds him of her. The boy she once knew is long gone. The world bows to him now, not as a monster but as a god. People pray to him with desperate pleading eyes, offering tributes to his strength, hoping to avoid his wrath. It's pathetic. Strength. That's all it ever took to change their tune. The same insects who once cursed him now worship him. Spineless. Every last one of them. His gaze drifts down to the book in his hands. He doesn't know why he's still holding on to it. With a flick of his wrist, he tosses it to the ground beside him. He needs to find a new way to pass time until death. Ryomen enters the room, their familiar presence barely registering in his mind. Behind them, a man with stitches across his forehead steps forward. So, have you thought about my proposal? His tone is measured, careful, as it should be. The proposal. To become a curse. To transcend the boundaries of mortality and ensure his existence would never end. To be reincarnated in another era far from this one. This era holds nothing for him anymore. He leans back, his gaze drifting to the empty horizon outside the temple window. All seasons have long since turned, but they all look the same to him now. Meaningless. Reincarnation. Many fools believe in it. Would she have been reincarnated, pulled back into the wheel of life in some other form in some other time? Would he even care when he became a curse? No, he wouldn't. Fine. Sukuna's crimson eyes slide to the man for the first time, bored and indifferent. Start the preparations. The man grins faintly, his hands holding together as if sealing a bargain. Ryomen watches silently from the side, their expression unreadable, though their gaze lingers on Sukuna for just a moment too long. Sukuna leans forward, resting his forearms on his knees, his hands curling into loose fists. The part of him that would have once cared is already dead. Man, the ending was so sad and edgy. 1,000 years later, Sukuna finally knows what death is, what defeat is. After so long, the weight of immortality is gone, and the endless fight is over. Like he told us so many years ago, he'd change his path if this day ever came. And so he follows north with Ryomen, walking through the endless darkness, leaving behind the ruins of his past existence. The past stretches ahead, endless and silent, but Sukuna isn't burdened by it. The weight of his life, the blood, the destruction, the empty victories feels lighter now. He glances at Ryomen, their presence steady and familiar beside him. His arm rests across their shoulder, their steps synchronized in the void. Do you think she'd be happy if she saw us now? This is making me sad. His voice is quieter than usual, a question laced with something almost uncertain. Ryomen looks up at him, their expression calm but thoughtful. I think you should ask her yourself. Sukuna freezes mid-step, and slowly he looks ahead. Oh no, oh no. There, waiting near the blinding light in the distance, stands a figure. His breath catches. Oh, I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna cry. Why is there angst and sadness in my smile? His breath catches, an unfamiliar ache blooming in his chest. She looks the same as she did 1,000 years ago, untouched by the weight of time. He steps forward, the pull towards her irresistible. So, did the path you take give you what you hoped for? Her voice reaches him clearly, soft but firm, cutting through the vast silence. Sukuna walks closer, his crimson eyes fixed on her. The ache grows sharper, twisting into something unnameable. Did you wait all those years just to say, I told you so? Her lips curl into a faint smile, her gaze warm but unwavering. Yes. He stops in front of her, closer now, close enough to touch. Are you happy now? Her smile widens, and she steps forward, closing the distance between them. Her hands lift to rest lightly on his chest, grounding him, and something inside him cracks open. Yes. Oh, oh no. For a moment, he allows himself the indulgence of holding her. His arms wrap around her, firm but tentative, as if he's afraid she might slip away. The ache fades, replaced by something gentler. Something he hasn't felt in longer than he can remember. Ryomen clears her throat behind him, their tone deliberately pointed. Now what? She glances at Ryomen, then back to Sukuna. Her expression softens, full of hope. Now we start another life. and I hope this universe is kind enough to keep us together this time. Sukuna pulls back slightly, his gaze searching hers. He was never one to hope, never one to believe in anything other than his strength. But now he hopes she's right. It will be. His voice is steady, final, as though daring the universe to defy him. He reaches out, taking her hand in one of his, and Urame's hand in the other, and with calm uncertainty he turns north towards the light. I'm sad. Let's go. Oh, good gravy. Oh my god. One last thing I want to test. What if I say he's a monster? The words leave your lips cold and deliberate, though they feel like shards of glass through your throat. Though they feel like shards of glass cutting through your throat. You turn away and walk out, refusing to glance back. And he doesn't stop you. The silence behind you feels heavier than any words he could have spoken. Disaster will come for you one day. You know this as surely as you know the wind will always carry you forward. But until then, you live the best life you can, far away from him. Far away from the pull of his presence and the boy you once knew. That boy is gone. Whatever innocence he had left was devoured long ago. You tell yourself you'll forget him, that you'll erase those childhood memories etched in your heart. The one who stood by you, the one who shared warmth with you in the cold, he isn't there anymore. And maybe, just maybe, you're part of the reason he became what he is now. A small piece of the puzzle that shaped him into this monster. The guilt lingers. A quiet whisper you carry with you, but it's something you'll have to live with. You glance at the sky as you walk, the wind brushing against your face like an old friend. You breathe it in, hoping it'll fill the hollow ache in your chest. Whatever Sukuna is searching for, whatever path he's chosen to walk, you hope he finds it. But you know you won't stay to see it. The end. Man. And that was Beauty and the Beast, the Sukuna dating sim. I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. I always love Khywae's games so much. The art is just to die for. And I really like her writing style as well. That was really sad. Like, why is the happy ending so sad? I'm glad that, like, we got to be happy in the end together. And I feel like it tied up really nicely, but I was on the verge of crying. I still feel like a lump in my throat. But thank you so much for experiencing the story with me. I really appreciate you guys so much. If you guys like this video, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss out on the next video. If you guys want to see the extra scenes, they will be on my Patreon. Link is in the description box below. But thank you so much for coming on this adventure with me, guys. And until next time, take care.